All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone in Facebook land, everyone in on Liberation Rise. We'd like to welcome you to today's show. And today we have a special program for you. We are going to be talking about what we usually do on this platform, where we actually want to talk about issues affecting our communities or issues that maybe sometimes we don't even think we should discuss. Gentlemen, how you guys doing? Mr. Sapalucia, Mr. George, how you guys doing today?
Well, I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. Thank God for another day. And we pray that as we go through this discussion, it will impact the life of somebody who will really need it. And that's our aim. And I hope we can manage to put that forward.
The doctor himself, the governor.
Yeah, good evening, Frank's out there in Cyberland. It's good to be on the show. I'm doing great today, Mr. Sheriff. Doing great. Not as awesome as you are, but great.
Oh man, you guys look wonderful. You guys look wonderful. And you know, today we are going to be talking about something that maybe I don't know if any one of us here on the show even know what we're going to be talking about today, but we are going to be talking about single parenthood, right? Talking about single parenthood, the challenges associated with those. And we have a special guest who is going to bring all her expertise to help us in that area. Do you guys have any single family friend that you know of? And what are some of the stories you've heard?
I have single family friends, but I have not really thought about the challenges they face. I think the first time I came close was when you and I went to Philadelphia. I met with our friend, our mutual friend over there. That's how close. That was the first time I actually came that close to understanding the relationship between a single parent, and their child, especially when they have to be away for some time and coming to spend time with them. That was the closest that I came to experiencing it.
Wow. And so, guys, without further ado, let me do this. Let's go ahead. Let's go to take our musical break because I want to bring our guests on. And while the music is going on, to our viewers, we want to just, as always, ask you to please continue to share the show. Share it on any platform you are, and let us pass this information out to as many people as possible. Because just like my friend Sapalucia said, these are not things we think about. It is not every day that we get to think about what does it mean to be a single parent. Maybe many of us, we are very fortunate. We do not have that experience of being single parents or children of single parents home. So we don't think about that much. But let's go ahead and take our musical break, share the show. We'll come right back and introduce our guest, and we will just go from there.
Your pride, your dignity. rise, you are on the rise. If only we shall hearken to his command. It is then that we shall rise, we shall pursue, we shall overtake, and we shall conquer all of our adversaries, and we shall shout at last, the Lone Star forever, the Lone Star forever. Oh, long may it flow o'er land and o'er sea. This journey, Lord, never uphold it forever. And shout for the Lone Star battle. Oh, hell, him, mama.
All right, guys. Well, we can sit here and listen to this song all day today, as far as I know, but the show must go on. So again, we want to welcome our viewers. We want to welcome everyone to today's edition. We are talking about single parenthood, the challenges surrounding that, and also how it leads into mental distress. To talk about this particular topic today, we have my panelists. We've introduced ourselves. Mr. Sapolucia is here with me. Dr. Emmanuel George is here. But we have a special guest in studio today who is going to be joining us to expound a little bit more on this particular topic. And our special guest today, her name is Ms. Helena Washington. She resides in the city of Houston. And Ms. Washington is a master. She holds a master's degree in addiction counseling. She has a master's degree in education. There are too many letters behind her name. I could not say all of it, but she will come on the show and we'll let her introduce herself, and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. So stay tuned, and I will now bring our guest on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our guest today, Miss Washington. How are you doing today?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to share the platform with you. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you on the show. Go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewers. Let our viewers know exactly who Miss Washington is.
Again, as I was introduced, my name is Helena Washington, and I reside in the greater Houston, Texas area. I have been here for 12 years, but I have been a behavioral health professional for almost 28 years. And I am proud of my background because of the fact that I'm able to help and give back to so many who need some extra help and healing. My background started with just straight mental health, and I ended up pivoting and focusing also on addiction. That happened 26 years ago. And as a result, I continue to, focus primarily on what it is to be healthy in the brain. Healthy lifestyles, wellness, and so forth. So overall wellness is my main focus. I am the mother of 3, the grandmother of 1. I have 3, and then I always talk, I know my people, we don't treasure our dogs, but I have a 4-legged son as well. He's 8 years old. So he's literally right here by my feet. So, but yes, I am the grandmother of 1. And this topic is very, it's timely, it's a sensitive topic. And it is my understanding, I do not know the individual, but I do know that we have challenges, that we've been facing within our community and in society as a whole, dealing with the pressures of the pandemic, Many people have lost income. People have had to adjust with working from home, and just maneuvering life on new terms. And some of those things have caused significant amounts of stress on families. So recently in my practice, I do most of my sessions virtually. I see very few people face to face. I do still have an office, but I've been working virtually because of the pandemic and trying to keep my family and others safe. There's been an uprising and a lot of dysfunction and stress within the American family. And I have to say the American family because that is the country that we're living in. And
Sure.
we're a part of the culture now because our children go to school and thrive and we're working in these communities. So it's impacting us here. Now, I know that we may be all over, diaspora, and all of us have been hit by this pandemic. So it's taking place, from the conversations I'm having internationally as well.
We are very happy to have you on the show today. Like you said, the topic is very timely. It is not one of those things that we actually think about on a regular basis when it comes to talk show, if you will. It's not something that you hear people talking about. But, I'd like to maybe just go into first attacking the subject matter all by itself. Let's talk about single parenting. Single parenting, what are some of those challenges involved when it comes to single parenting? And what are some things that happen that those of us who are not in that particular position, we may not be sensitive to?
Mm-hmm. Well, when we talk about dissecting what a single parent is, we need to start looking at it in a couple of different ways. I am considered a single parent. That's not how I categorize myself. I categorize myself as a parent that is single. And what that means is I have partnership. I did not create my children alone. So there's co-parenting that exists. Sometimes we look at, single parenthood as some kind of deficiency or defect. And there's a lot of heavy judgment that I think most people are not sensitive to. Single parenthood can happen in so many ways. Obviously, it can happen through unfortunate events, with relationships, with marriages, with, failed partnerships. It can be by choice. I know many women who have frozen their eggs and they have decided to, because they didn't want to wait, they couldn't find the right person, that they felt, that they wanted to be married or connected to. They've decided I'm going to go ahead and have a child. I know many women who have done that by choice. And sadly, the one thing that I think society as a whole, the judgment, especially in the Black community, especially in our African communities, our rate of single parenthood coming out of our country is a little high right now. We have a very high rate of single parenthood within our country. For those who don't know, I don't know if I mentioned, I am a native of Liberia. I came here as a child in the 70s. But we do have a very high rate of single parenthood. I did not grow up in a single parent household, but I do understand those challenges. And I do understand the imposition of single parenthood when some of our parents return back to our homeland and the other parent is still here. They become a single parent in some regard. Even though the marriage may still be intact for all, purposes, but they also experience that. So we have to look at the different levels. The judgment, the criticism that takes place, I think I have found that more people are more sensitive and offering more support, as far as the village approach to single parenting, as far as helping kids, transportation, pickup. I'm working late. Can you help me? Various things. So, looking at support, but the stigma associated with that title, single parent, I think the judgment, you don't know what their circumstances are. And honestly, sometimes leaving a particular marriage or relationship, sometimes that's the best thing you can do to maintain the mental wellness and the safety of those children and the other partners. So that is the number one, the judgment, the fact that I think that people need to be a little bit more sensitive to those factors, that we need to do better. We need to do a lot better. Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, Dr. George, if you go ahead, sir.
Yes, I want to do a follow-up if you won't mind. I mean, thank you so much for clearing that. My mother was a single parent for many years until she got remarried in 1988. So I grew up mostly with her. I mean, my father was a single father his entire life. So I did navigate the two of them. But the point you made is an important point, and it's I could have you, if you won't mind, repeat it, Sarah. That there are people who make choice to be single parents. They keep the egg, and then they have someone. They go through the whole fertility thing we have now, but what leads to this stigmatization? If you could, I know religion may be one of them. Either whether you practice the European religion or the African traditional religion, being married is a core part of the African community, and the society may also be one of them, because I mean, in our culture, in the Liberian culture, if you went through sorry, my background is more in cultural something, so the way I view culture is extremely different from how others may see it. But what we call the Sani society, we call them the Poro society. I call them the African university system. Mm-hmm. So it was expected that once a young lady graduated from the Poro and a young man graduated from the young lady graduated from the Sandy and a young man graduated from the Poro, they were ready to get married and they should have a successful marital life, because that university system taught that. So so what do we want to share things in our society, in our community, in your experience, 28 years, an awesome experience that leads to this stigmatization?
I think the stigmatization comes from things have changed, and most cultures are not going to just simply change because the times have changed. Traditions stay in place. That's why they're called traditions. But at the same time, the fact that we have moved into the Western world, that makes a huge difference. Because of the fact we're having children, we're raising our children in the West, even though the foundation may be of West African, of our different tribes, of our country, you're still raising those children in a Western world. Like, for example, I'm going to throw out some information. People like to say Black women are, the highest rate of single parents, or why are so many Black women single? The big difference is Black women and white women, they all tend to be single and divorced at the same rate. The problem is Black women don't remarry as fast. There's a big difference in that shift. White women remarry faster than Black women do. So as a result, Black women are viewed as being more so on the spectrum of being single. That's a false, reality that people need to understand. And those are things you can find and read in research and fact-based articles. Those are things that are facts. On top of that, the other thing is when we talk about stigmatization, I know within our culture, I remember the comments that I would get, to the point to where, some days I want it to be, for lack of a better word, cheeky with some people. You don't know the situation. You don't understand those dynamics to make for themselves and their families, but we don't understand to turn off the cultural lens. When you bring a woman or a young lady or even a young man here, depending on when they left home and came to the Western world, that level of foundation is going to shift, because you're going to have so many influences of the Western world. You start picking up the behaviors, the thought patterns, the impressions that we see in the media. Those things are going to supersede the foundations of your culture, just because of the fact of what you're exposed to in your educational systems. And when we take a look at what we're seeing in the media, okay? And I think, when I look back in the 70s and 80s, and depending on what region of the country you're from, that you live in the South, you still have those who want to get married before 30, okay? You go up north or to the Northeast, they're not even thinking about that. If it happens, it happens. They're focused on their education, they're focused on their careers, and if it falls into place, it falls into place. You know, and the other thing that I think that we need to also remember, Black women in this country, Black women are raised to be strong. Black women are raised to make sure you can take care of yourself, because a man is not guaranteed to be there for you. That is what's instilled in Black women for the most part. White women go to college to find their husbands. I had this conversation with a white woman the other day. She said that's what we went to college for. We chose our colleges. She chose TCU because TCU was a private institution, and a lot of the people at TCU, they had money. That is why she chose to go to TCU. And those are things that we don't instill. You know, and I'm not saying that we should be doing that. That is just the culture and the community and the environment that they grew up in. So that's another thing that we have to pay attention to, the regions as to where we grew up and the focus. Okay. I don't know anyone who wants to just become a single parent. No one wants to just be a single parent. It's not ideal. Okay. I don't know anyone who wants to. Sometimes it is the best decision. Okay. And sometimes it's a decision that you cannot get away from. No one chooses to say, oh, I just want to be a single parent. You know, so we have to remember that. It's not ideal for the children. It's not ideal for the financial stability of the household. Nobody wants that. But sometimes that's just where things end up. Okay. Wow. The other thing that we also have to remember when we talk about the fact of marriages and relationships failing, or even relationships, people are starting to have what is quote unquote partnerships. You know, people communicate and talk about, oh, what's happening with the church, what's happening with the foundation of Christianity, or whatever your faith may be. People are not, you know, liking the fact that the roots, you know, well, the Bible says this, the Quran says this, you know, people are not paying attention to a lot of those traditions anymore because of the fact some people may have grown up in a situation where they didn't have good examples. Okay, we'll just be partners. We don't need a piece of paper. And we live in a state that has common law. So once you're under the roof for 6 months, after a while, I mean, there's more pieces to it. I'm just saying in a very broad way. True. You're considered to be husband and wife. And you see that more so in the South in the United States than you do up north. So there's many different levels of complexity that I think people need to be a little bit more sensitive to when it comes to the stigma of single parenting. The bottom line for me, as far as dealing with the stigmatization of it, you don't know someone's situation. So don't speak on it. Don't criticize. Don't put that family down. Don't put that person down. And don't pass judgment to where you're hindering resources and opportunities to those children, because we see it on a regular basis.
Wow. Mr. Sapalucia, go ahead before we make our transition. I know you have a question there for our guest. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I was just trying to head into the next part of that discussion instead of just going back to where we were. Because the two topic on discussion is very sensitive when it comes to what we are going to transition to soon. And if you guys don't mind, I just want to transition to that instead of going back to just single parenting, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. Can I just inject something on the single parent, then you can transition if you won't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want our audience and for us to miss this point that single parenting, to be single is a point of choice, as our guest is saying. People make choices all the time, and also the issue of how we determine why people become single. But my question is, are there married people who are single parents? Can a married person be a single parent too? Is there stages that they can experience that?
A married individual can be a single parent, but it's not the same thing, because if you're married, you have a partnership. You and your partner need to have very clear understanding of what that parenting situation looks like, whatever that parenting system is. Number one, if you're married and you have moved on and have a new partner, wife, you know, children, if it's a blended family, we have to take a look at all the different layers of blended family. How are you co-parenting with the ex or the mother of your child? Because not everyone's in a relationship. We know things happen. How are you communicating and co-parenting with the other parent? that is what is going to make that situation more smooth for that family, for that child, and for that relationship you're trying to have. So yes, married individuals can be quote unquote, and it's a different level category because you have a partnership. You're remarried. If you are remarried, you have a new system. How is that system going to work to embrace your children or that child? Okay. And the one thing that I know people make mistakes all the time. You decide to marry somebody with children. That woman or that man is a part of your family. I don't care how you see it or not. They're a part of your family. They may not be a part of your nuclear family, but if you love that child, you're going to learn to love and figure out a way. You may not always like that person, but you're going to figure out a way to work with that family over here, with that parent over here. That is where I think things falter. When you have a new marriage, a new family going on, or you're developing a new family and you don't know how to co-parent with the previous relationship, things are going to fall apart. So when we talk about single parenting and being married, it's a little different because you have a new partnership and you need to be on the same page with the previous partner or the child's parent or your children's parents. If you don't do that, you're going to have a number of other issues going on. And as we transition and start talking about the mental health, that's when you're going to start seeing a lot of those challenges with the kids. You're going to see a lot of those challenges and all the unnecessary stress. And I am going to get into some of those factors as well. So it's a little different category when you are married and you have a child or children with a previous wife or girlfriend or fiance. The other thing we also have to remember, people lose their spouses. We have a lot of widowers and widowed individuals who lost their spouses. And that is another layer that needs to be addressed and taken a look at, because now you're dealing with grief. People grieve differently. There is no cap on grief. People have to learn to live differently without that parent or that spouse. And that's always a challenge. And sometimes people don't give themselves enough time, or they're listening to, oh, how long is it going to take you to grieve? How long? Can't you get over this? There is no time clock on grieving. People just need to learn how to live differently. So that's another conversation, but that's another layer of single parenthood that you also need to acknowledge, and the components that go there when you talk about someone's mental wellness.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Again, I just, Sapulisa, were you going to say something? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to transition from where I think she already started heading that direction. So
yeah, definitely.
So,
and again, we just want to say thank you again so much for, making the appearance and actually taking the time to clarify some of these things. I'd like to pause there for a second and just reach out to our audience. If you'd like to participate on the show, if you'd like to send us your comments for our guests, please send comments for the guests, and we will actually have those comments read and she will address those. And we are still trying to get the phone system set up here, so maybe you'll be able to call in as well. But if you'd like to appear on the show on video, also send us that information, send us that comment, and we'll bring you on, and you can ask our guests on the show as well. Continue to share the show, and please continue to send us your comments if you have any question about single parenting or the challenges faced by it. All right. So, Mr. Sapulisa, I would like to transition. So definitely, let's go ahead and just get into the mental health aspect of how all of this come together. So how do you take the lead on this?
okay. So again, Ms. Washington, thank you so much for your time. And it was timely. We just asked if you came up to give our audience at least some education in regard to single parenting and mental health. And like I said, single parenting is a sensitive issue in the United States. It is also a sensitive issue in our community as Nigerians. Mental health, on the other hand, is similar, right? Because a lot of people do not want to admit that they have mental issues. They don't even want to be identified as such. I think it's a condition that needs to be addressed. And I think we as a human being, as people, we need to be upfront about it so that we can get the necessary help, that we deserve. Now, when it comes to single parenting, our culture frowns on it. Religious community frown on it. Community frown on it. Loyal people who maybe you have interacted with, and the stigma that comes with it, and the mentality that we Africans, it is not only African, black women in America. In Africa, we are told to be strong. Growing up as a young boy, no matter what the challenge is, you fall down, you get it, tells you, hey, wipe your hand and move on, right? Men don't cry and all kind of stuff. What impact do you think, as a single parent, what impact do you think it will have on the mental health of an individual?
Well, I want to the word strong, and I have it written down right here. That word is dangerous. That word is very dangerous. It keeps a lot of people sick. It creates a lot of illness. It keeps a lot of people mentally unwell. But at the same time, it's this phenomenal, amazing word that we're all supposed to keep doing. Just be strong. You'll get through. I need us to stop telling people that. I need us to stop believing that, because that word strong has caused a lot of hindrance in people getting help. Part of our challenge is and it's right here. I have it written right here because I was going to make sure that because I have all my notes that I was going to make sure to address that word. It keeps us from getting help. It keeps us from growing. And also being too strong teaches very, very poor coping skills. It also creates mental unwellness in our children. And that's when we talk about the generational challenges that I have written down here. Part of the challenges that we have, and I love my culture. I come from 2 different tribes that, we all come from different tribes. Our country is small, but we have such vast culture, and I love my culture. I love my community and my people. When it comes to mental health, we know that there are spiritual pieces that play into a number of things. If you are, a Christian, if you are Muslim, if you are Jewish, if you are whatever your faith may be, if you believe in God, you also believe in the evil that exists. So I want to say that piece right there when I talk about faith. Number 1. Number 2, we have to educate our people to know every time somebody has a mental health issue, it's not witchcraft. Nobody put wish on you. Sometimes we have to get help to educate our communities to certain things. As a result, sometimes when you have conversations with certain family members or your friends or even within your communities, you'll say, oh, this person did this. This person wasn't correct. This person wasn't this. The word correct comes to mental health. That person is not correct. We have to really, really hone in on the language that we use. We have to start allowing our people to understand mental wellness. And that's why I use that term, because people don't like talking about mental health. They don't like to say they have mental health issues. That word issues breeds stigma. I always talk about mental wellness. So we have to start changing our language. Stop, just for example, stop calling people crackheads. Okay. Addiction is a disease. That word crackhead and junkie, there's children suffering, there's people in pain. They didn't ask to be that way. But society takes a look at their behaviors and they put them underneath the ground. Okay? And that's what we're doing also in our country. So when we talk about brain disorders, any brain disorder we talk about, we have to talk about it like we're talking about diabetes. We have to talk about it like we're talking about heart disease. We have to talk about it like you're going to get your prostate checked. I'm on here with a bunch of men and I'm going to speak your language. And some men get uncomfortable when I go there. But that is how we have to talk about mental wellness, our brains. If we don't have a brain, nothing else in our lives are going to work. Okay. And we have to realize that. So number 1, brain health is important. Number 2, when we talk about our environmental factors, what those environmental factors are, do you have food, the basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Do you have those basic needs of food, clothing, shelter, and love? Do you have a feeling of belonging? Do you have just those basic needs met? Okay. And how are you going to be well? We went through a war that so many people, including so many of my family members and friends, have been dumped in various parts of this world and just said, here, you're in a new land. Let's go to work. Let's go to school. Let's keep it moving. Dealing with trauma, that still exists. That is going to impact how you parent, because you're still dealing with the trauma of our Civil War. Okay. We are still dealing with those cultural shifts because of that. Many of my family, I don't know too many Liberians. If our country was not as interesting as it is, most of us would be back home. We would. You know, my parents wouldn't have stayed here from 1970, whatever, all the way till now. My dad spends most of his time back home now. So we have to take a look at all of those factors that impact our people. They're still dealing with trauma. We still have moments of high levels of anxiety and depression. How do you think you're going to parent? How do you think that's going to impact your marriages? Okay. We don't seek help. When we talk about marriage counseling, sometimes we go to our churches. Many African people go to African churches. So we're going to go to our African ministers and pastors. Not everyone. Some go to, many of us go to, you know, Western churches, whether it's predominantly white or predominantly Black or mixed. Okay. So those different things, we have all those different paths. With that being the case, the church here in the United States is just now starting over the last maybe 10 to 15 years, maybe 10 years. They're really starting to amp up their mental health care, their mental wellness, addressing those issues. We can't just pray everything away. When the doctor tells you something's wrong with your breast, you have breast cancer, are you going to go get treatment and pray? Or are you just going to pray? You're going to do both. So we need to seek help when it's time for family challenges, where we're having those issues, when we're talking about faith. We have to change our language. We have to know it's okay for us to get help. And we have to feel comfortable getting help to the point of, hey, let people call throughout our community. It's not just me. We have a few mental health professionals within the greater Houston community. And we reach out, we talk to each other. People reach out for help. Sometimes we have to, bring people from outside of our community for them to seek that help. And I deal with family issues. There's some people who have had some family challenges, and so gave me a call, and I gave them those resources that they needed. I don't always, if they don't volunteer who it is, I'm not going to ask, because we also deal with a lot of shame. Okay. Shame keeps us stagnant. We have to start getting past that. And this is not just a cultural West African thing. You know, we have Brene Brown. She's always on Oprah. Brene Brown is based right here in Houston. Brene Brown's whole platform is based on shame and moving past shame and healing yourself and living your best life and spreading your wings and healing from that past trauma. Okay. So those are some of the things that we have to start taking a look at. How are we going to receive those individuals? You know, when it comes to, are we going to gossip about them? Are we going to, clap for their demise? Are we grateful, that the family unit is falling apart? Are you happy because that man and woman are falling apart? Now I can go after that woman. We have to really pay attention to all of those factors and change how we perceive, communicate, reach out, and accept our people when they need help. Now, going into the piece with the single parenthood, sometimes when I talk to individuals, and I believe the village approach, don't make people feel bad for reaching out for help. Okay. If you are a single parent, you're going to create. What if the father lives in Minnesota and you're here in Houston? You have to have a network of support. You may have to work late. You may be in, something may be going on with you and your child is sick and you can't go pick that child up because your child has a fever and the school is telling you to come pick that child up. We have to learn how to be more supportive to one another. We have to reach out and pull somebody aside. Don't do it, because we are a prideful people. Everything I'm saying is not to tear down our culture. We are very prideful. Okay. And pride can be good and bad. What I mean by prideful, we are strong, with our culture and being proud Liberians, regardless of what the world throws at us, regardless of what we see or what we hear and what we don't agree with, we are still proud. But at the same time, we cannot let that pride keep us from seeking the support and help. When you are a single parent, you need help and support, whether it's from your parents, the grandparents, whether it's from your best friend, whether it's even from your employer. Don't tell your employer all your business. I am one of those people. I don't like those people knowing my business. I don't like half my own community knowing my business. I'm very private. I give you what I want you to have, and that's it. One of the things I'm saying, people are also shameful to talk about, okay, you're changing my schedule. I know things are changing at work, but Mr. John Doe, I really can't work this shift. I really, I need to be home, or this shift is inconveniencing for me and what I have going on within my family. We have to be realistic where it talks about your faith, your family, and work. We need to understand the issues in the order here. your faith, your family, and work. We need to understand that, because if work is up here, everything's going to falter because of the fact you're overworking yourself, you're making yourself sick, and you're not giving your family the time you need. Now think about a single parent. If that single parent, we see all kinds of movies where the parent was always working. What do we see? Some of the challenges that we're seeing in some of our cities with a lot of our people. Some of those young people are faltering and they're turning to the streets. They don't have supervision. They're not in school. They're getting into trouble. The same things that we see in the Western world, we're seeing it with our people.
I think this is a beautiful place to actually. It's a good place to transition into the next question that I have personally for you. We have known for a while now that just the family structure have a significant impact on the children. We've known that for a while. Psychologists, and mental health professionals have actually done studies on this. But I like for us to just look at it from a different point of view today. What impact does being a single parent have on the mental well-being of that single parent?
Well, one of the things I want to start with is the two most common diagnoses that are identified with single parenting. And not just when I say single parenting, just in general. The two most highly, recognizable challenges is dealing with anxiety and depression, whether it's clinical or situational. And I call it situational. Situational is not a clinical term, but certain situations, different things can happen in your life to where you have higher levels of anxiety, and you're dealing with a lot of worry, a lot of the unknown, a lot of apprehensions. You're working on a fear base because of the fact you're trying to protect your family unit. You're trying to protect your children. You're trying to hold it all together. It is difficult when we talk about anxiety. I want to talk about anxiety for a moment. The layman's term, the best, easiest layman's way I can explain anxiety is heightened sense of fear and worry. That it's a heightened sense. And that is not the clinical diagnosis, but it's just the easiest way for me to get anyone to understand the level of anxiety. And what can happen with that? What if you're coming from an abusive relationship? The husband was abusive. You guys were fighting and arguing on a regular basis. That child is going to have high levels of anxiety just with moving forward, whether it's in school, with how they socialize with their friends, and then just moving outside of that situation. But then it becomes normal. When it's normalized, those generational issues start to develop. That's where those things can start to develop. When we talk about depression, yes, we all get sad when someone we love dies. We get sad when we lose a relationship. We're saddened to know that something doesn't work. But at the same time, we have to understand divorce and breakup are traumatic experience for all in that system. It's a level of trauma. Trauma is relative, and we need to understand trauma. Okay. And this is not a lesson in trauma. I am a certified trauma specialist, but we're not going to get into trauma tonight. But I need you to understand trauma is relative. So when that parent is experiencing the trauma of the breakup, imagine that child, what those children are experiencing. And every child is different. And I know our people don't agree when I say this, because I get the pushback all the time. We need to parent our children differently. Not all punishments and consequences work for each child. I know that's not our culture, but it's a fact. Some things, I hear people say, oh, this one over here, if I do this, nothing, it doesn't even faze him. He keeps doing the same thing. This one over here understands, and they change the behavior. So we have to understand that each child is different. And as they're experiencing that trauma from the breakup, from the parent becoming single, from their family unit, breaking up, no matter how dysfunctional it may be, that is a traumatic experience for that child, which is going to breed higher levels of anxiety and depression, which could become clinical. And every time I see families breaking up, or there's dysfunction, or there's stress, sometimes if definitively it's over, we're moving forward, we're not going to make this work, people need to go to, it's good to go to counseling. It's good to go to therapy, whether it's with a therapist, a licensed therapist, or whether it's with your pastoral care. You need to learn how to live separately. You need to learn how to live differently versus you go your way, I go my way. I see my kids on the first, third, and fifth weekend, or I see my kids whenever. That's not how that should be done. Because of the fact you're still dealing with a lot of hurt, you're still dealing with a lot of anger, you're still dealing with a lot of animosity between, you know, the parents. Those are things that I don't think people take into account. You need to learn how to live apart. You need to learn how to parent in two separate, you know, the rules here need to apply over there. Okay. Ultimately, that's where we tend to run into those situations where, say, for example, the kid is with the mom. The mom is the one who's putting down the law, disciplining. I'm not going to tolerate this mess. You're going to do this, this, this. They go to the dad. The dad is the fun one because you're only with them 2 or 3 weekends, you know, 2 or 3 days a month. So they're the fun one. They want the kid to like them. You know, fathers are more than a paycheck. I'm going to repeat that. You are more than financial help. That child needs nurturing. That child needs support. Yes, finances are important. It's needed, and it's your responsibility. When that relationship splits or falls apart, it's your responsibility to make sure you offer that support to that mother, or vice versa. You guys come up with some type of system. I have seen situations where the man fell on hard times and he wasn't able to offer that support. I had to bring those families together and say, here, how can you help solve this? He is still doing the best he can. And I've seen it be successful. And she's like, I will do this. I will support you here. This is what we can do to work together because it's best for the well-being of the child. Okay. Wow. But when people do not learn how to parent separately or live separately, you have higher rates of depression, anxiety, and those children don't transition well with that trauma of the split. It is a traumatic experience, and we have to understand trauma.
Thank you so much. And again, we just want to encourage our guests, if you have any question when it comes to single parenting and mental well-being, please send us your questions. And also there's a number scrolling across the screen. You can call that number and you can ask your question live. Mr. Sapalucia, you can go ahead with your next question, sir.
So now that we're at least we're approaching our 1 hour mark, I would like to know from our guests, what are some resources? Because we know everywhere we go, whether it's mental health or any other health conditions, we have to have resources that are available, that, especially the ones that are free. What are some of the resources that you can offer, you can direct our community to, that at least can bring down some of the stress when it comes to their mental well-being or for their family?
One of the things that I would like to start with, I will start with the basic one, your place of worship. Okay. Most of our people, you know, whether you're Liberian or just an African American, most of our people go to the church first. And that's still, to this day, it's still a fact. They go to the church, go to your synagogues, go to the mosque, go to your church. If that is what makes you comfortable, seek guidance there. Almost every church now has support services for counseling, or they have folks who volunteer who are licensed clinicians to come in and they offer counseling services. That's number one. It's a good place to start. If you are part of a community, whether it's our community or another community, make sure you reach out to those. If you have different committees, reach out to those resources in a trusted manner and say, hey, this is what I need. Can you guide me in the right place? One of the other things I want to mention is within every community in this country and certain places internationally, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, which is NAMI. NAMI has a ton of, and it's NAMI.org. NAMI has a lot of support for families. They have support for adolescents. They have support for children. They offer a lot of support groups, and most, I think, probably 90% of their services are free because they do a lot of fundraising and different things like that. So I do want us to remember NAMI.org, and that's something that's national. NAMI Houston has a ton of great resources right here locally, and NAMI Houston takes care of the greater Houston area. There's even Gulf Coast NAMI, which focuses more so on Galveston and our Galveston Island. Whether you're in Minnesota, Ohio, or wherever, NAMI is there. The other thing that I would like to also highlight is if you call, United Way has a number 211. United Way is funded by, it's a nonprofit supported by other businesses and nonprofits. If you call 211 in your community, the United Way also has a list of resources for free counseling, financial assistance. They also have services that help you with financial training to redevelop, healthy financial decision-making, bill paying, different opportunities, because single parents, a lot of the times, if it's a divorce situation, you have to recover financially. So they do, and say, for example, and I've had family members where the man did take care of everything. And then when he was no longer there, she had to, they had to figure out, what am I going to do? Because he handled all the finances. And, she was just left, like, what am I going to do now? So there are a lot of financial literacy programs, because that's something that we didn't have time to talk about, that also impacts the mental wellness of the family unit when they split. That is a huge contributing factor because of the food insecurities, paying the electric bill, making sure there's a decent roof over that child's head, making sure, men, I'm going to say it, women, we also have to understand this. If that woman's car breaks down, don't be nasty to her if she comes to you and says, hey, I can't take your child to the doctor. I can't take your child to soccer practice. I need a little assistance. Many men will say, oh, you're going to fix your hair or your nails. Okay, then go pay the mechanic. I need to take your child to school. I need to be able to take your child. I need to get to work so I can feed and help keep a roof over our child's head. So those are some of the things that I'm talking about, that you can get those resources to help teach the financial wellness and literacy. And a lot of churches, whether you belong to that church or not, a lot of churches offer those services to the communities that they're in. Take advantage of them, because the amount of stress that comes along with financial insecurity, it's immense. It is serious. When you don't have health care, when you don't have those basic needs met, the fear, the anxiety, the children feel it. As much as you may try to hide it from the child, they feel it. They're more intuitive and they're more resilient than we give credit for. Our children are resilient. Okay, we just have to push them and show them. And there is something else before we go. I know we only have a couple of minutes, but I really, really want to touch on this. Some of the things that exist that can take place if things aren't done properly, if things aren't put in place. Some of the scenarios, the negative impact of single parenting. I do want to talk about that. Generational trauma. You've heard me mention that over and over again. Trauma could be as simple as your goldfish dying to seeing someone murdered in front of you. Trauma is relative for everyone. Poor coping skills, poor coping mechanisms. Okay. How you handle certain situations and scenarios. Pretty much your foundation is going to be developed based on what you see at home. Home is the foundation of everything. If you are not handling things and learning how to manage your stress, manage those relationships, manage communication, it's going to go ahead and be transcended down to your children. Poor and ineffective modeling of healthy relationships. Even if you decide to live separate, you can still teach your children how to be in healthy relationships. You can learn how to teach them to be in healthy relationships with how they communicate, how they cope, how they communicate with you and the other one. We have to teach our children healthy relationships and model what that means and what that looks like. And one of the things, this is where a lot of the problems tend to come from, school. Behavioral and the educational challenges that our children tend to encounter because of single parenting and lack of resources, lack of proper co-parenting, or just lack of stability. Those are some of the key areas. And of course, the school is going to identify it for you. If you don't want to address those things, the school will definitely bring it to you because your child's not going to be performing well. And they may also have some behavioral challenges that will exist. Okay.
Okay. I mean, I want to, those points you made are very key, that they are key. And I so every one of us want the best for our kids, especially when we go through whether you go through a process of divorce or you lost your loved one, your spouse, or in a relationship or in marriage. But a key thing that is running through my mind out there for our viewers too is that how in these cases, sometimes relationship the breakup is not as smooth as the ideal will be. There are so much hurt, there are so much pain between the ex-wife or ex-husband. Breakup is so painful and so challenging. Now, what would be your advice to parents who have gone through a traumatic breakup, who are now single parent, but they have kids that they have to work with, but there is so much bitterness between the couple, between the ex couple?
The first thing that I suggest, some of these things cost, and some of these things you can find, at minimal expense. The first thing that I recommend, if you know it's done, it's over, and you will be living separately and the relationship is not going to work, you need to start seeking counseling to learn how to live separately. I keep saying that. It's a real thing. Therapists will teach you how to do that. Okay? That's number one for you and that other parent. Number two, those kids need counseling. Those kids need preparation. They need to start counseling. Number one, if you are at a point of breaking up or splitting up or divorcing or not working, things haven't been good for a long time. The kids should have already started the counseling process just to deal with their feelings and emotions and the fear of, a lot of the times children blame themselves. Okay. They carry the load of, if my mom and dad weren't arguing all the time because my mom picked me up late from school, or, my mom is stressed out over my schoolwork, they will internalize those things. They will take that on. That's probably what they're seeing from their parents, but they're not the root of what is going on. The adult relationship is completely separate. That is something else that adults need to understand. When the bitterness is so strong, that father's relationship with that daughter or son is separate from the relationship with you. That relationship you have and that disdain you have for that man, that relationship is separate than the relationship you have with your children. There's 3 different levels of relationship: the relationship between the man and the woman, the relationship between the man and the children, and the relationship between the women and the children. Those are 3 different relationships, and people need to understand that and remember that. Too many times they bleed together. And that's why you continue to see the crumble, you see the pain, and you see the perpetuation of that pain continue for long periods of time. Okay? Learning how to live separately and learning how to heal. That man needs counseling. Join a men's group. I know a gentleman in the city. He used to be a ball player overseas. He's a therapist now. Ernest does these retreats every year, and he tries to recruit at least 3 to 5 men every year. They're gone for 2 weeks. No one can reach them. They check in periodically. It's a male healing opportunity. He counsels men with all of the transition in life on what manhood is, what manhood looks like. Okay. Women have retreats. Women can get counseling. We need our own level of counseling. I don't care where you come from. You don't even have to have anything traumatic or anything bad happening in your life. If you need counseling, get it. My number one advice is to get some counseling. You have to get some counseling. That is the only way that healing will start taking place. Your girlfriend over here in your ear doing this, her situation might be just as jacked up or worse. That's not who you need to be listening to. Okay. And you men, y'all do it too. There's a whole lot of men I know that do this. They do a lot of lip service and their situation isn't good. Your friends can be of the most support. They can be nurturing. You can go have a drink. You can go to church together. And I don't push drinking. I take that back because I don't want anybody to become an alcoholic because I said that. Okay. But the point I'm trying to make is your friends can be of support. Your family can be of support, but they are not the key to helping you solve all of those challenges. Okay. So I do highly recommend you getting some counseling.
Okay. Friends out there on Facebook, YouTube, joining us on different channels. Our guest tonight is Miss Helena Washington. She's a counselor. She has been in this business for over 28 years, and she has been speaking to us on single parenting and mental health. we have spent a lot of time talking on both sides. We've been waiting for you to send in your calls if you have that in comments also. But we're about to wrap up because we have hit the 1 hour mark, and you can share it, continue sharing the video because we continue on this even after the show. But as we wrap up, Mr. Sapolusi, do you have a final question?
Well, I just want to say thanks to Ms. Washington for answering our call, and we hope to see her soon again to at least share more insight on what she does and how she can reach out to our community and help them. With that being said, I know we are. I hope she can spare us at least 5 minutes. Now, what would be the worst scenario in the case of if let's say they have, like, you talk about the bitterness, because that's one of the main things that I have seen. Right, I have seen that happen when people are separated. The parents of both sides tend to take their bitterness or whatever dispute they have with one another to the children, right? Giving negative thoughts or negative feeling to the child, telling the child, hey, your father or your mother, whatever that is, inciting the child, we put it that way, against both parents. And I know for a fact it will have a negative impact on that child. So with those things, what are some of the worst scenario? What is the worst scenario could be if not addressed that it will have, or mental health or mental problem it will have for a family, not just the parent, but everybody involved. That's the kids, parents, and whatever. What do you think would be the worst scenario to come out of in those kind of situations?
One of the things that I think people don't pay attention to when we sit there and talk about the parent to the kid, or put the parent down, that child is going to internalize that because they're part of that person. And if that person is the dirt of the earth, the scum of the earth, I'm part of that person. So that defeats and brings down their self-esteem. Okay. If my mother is this, that, and the other, that's my mother. I'm a part of my mother. That must mean I am that also. That is something that people don't pay attention to when you are giving those negative words and putting down the other parent. Okay. It causes a lot of self-esteem and hurt within that child. Their worth is defined by their parents. Okay. That is something that we have to acknowledge. Number one. Number two, by you perpetuating and continuing that, you're making yourself sick. You're not getting anywhere. You're not solving anything. You're going to cause yourself sickness. You're going to cause yourself continued infliction of pain. Okay. That is why you need to go and get some help. You're teaching your children, you're demonstrating to your child, this is how you handle this. This is how you cope. Your child is going to pick up on that. The other thing is, you don't want your child developing resentments towards you. When your child has resentments deep down inside and they continue to grow and they fester, that child grows up to be an adult that has deep resentments towards you. Okay, so those are some of those 3 points that I want to highlight. When you put down the other parent to that kid, you're digging into the child as well, because that child is half of that parent. And they're going to reflect and say, well, if my mother is the scum of the earth and my father is the scum of the earth, that means I am too, because I'm a part of that parent. Now imagine if it's coming from both sides. Okay. So those are some of the 3 things, of course we can go into further conversation, but those 3 things are the 3 things that I want to highlight with that situation. We have to watch our language and how we speak about the other one.
Okay. I mean,
let me say this one more time to the both of you. If the parent is a horrible person, the child's going to grow up and see it, and they have the ability to change because the other parent was able to instill in them a level of stability without contributing to the dysfunction. That's the other thing. If that person is horrible, the child's going to see it as they grow up, but it's not your job to sit there and dig and put that in the child's head.
Okay. I mean, it has been a very wonderful discussion. I mean, just take you on another side. I mean, most of what you have said, you always pivot to counseling. It's good, but counseling can be very expensive. I remember recently I was trying to just have a few hours of therapy, and I think it was going to cost me $150, $200 just to set in before we started the main discussion. Now, we know people need this. and we also know that it may or may not be expensive. So you are being in the field, so someone may be watching us and thinking, yes, I really need this counseling, my bank account is very low at this time. So do you have some suggestions? Are there areas that you can have, you can still have these resources, but you can have it at a minimum charge, or do you do pro bono?
When it comes to therapy is not free in most cases. It's not. Yeah. And I think the other thing is people have to realize that therapists, we have to make a living. We have overhead, we have our own bills to pay, we have to eat. It's our profession. You know, most of us don't punch a clock, you know, where our business is based on our clientele. And the value that we bring to people's lives, we should be compensated for it. And I say that, but at the same time, there are some opportunities. Various therapists are able to do sliding fee scale. Just because someone's rates are listed on my page, I don't put my rates. But if you call me, I'm going to tell you what I charge. Now, if you say, well, I don't take any insurance. I don't take anyone's insurance because I just don't. There are some therapists that take insurance. Your copay may be $30. There are some therapists that take Obamacare insurance, and that can cut that cost as well. The other thing is, let me back up. I just need people to understand that therapy does cost, and it is okay for us to give you our rate and ask for that rate, depending on our skill set and what we're bringing to the table. Now, if you are working with someone and say you lose your job or you lose your insurance, we are ethically responsible to work something out. We can't drop you. Counselors are not allowed. We have ethics. We're not allowed to drop you because of your inability to pay. We're supposed to work something out with you because we are healthcare providers, but we have a code of ethics that we have to follow. So I do have situations where that has happened, and, you know, I have worked with people. The other thing I want to back up when I talk about counseling, you need to do an interview. And if you all ever need those questions, I tell people to interview their therapist to make sure that is the right person for you. Just like you would a psychiatrist or any other medical doctor. You need to interview that person to make sure they have the skill set and that they're going to be able to assist you and your family, number one. Number two, some of the other resources, like when I told you to call 211, there are other resources as well. They have a list of resources where they're able to offer some counseling and things like that. Many therapists do offer pro bono services. A lot of therapists will base that on their caseload. You know, when I started, I always said I was going to keep certain slots for certain groups of people to make sure that's my give back, you know, to where I'm able to see people who don't have the resources, because I believe everyone should get good, ethical, quality care, regardless if you're able to pay or not. But I would go to Psychology Today, therapy. I mean, there's different therapy websites where you can find therapists, not just Google, but where you can find therapists, and you can put in certain qualifications that you're looking for. Insurance. You can look at fees. Some of those things come up if you're focusing on divorce, children of divorce, transitioning. All of those things, excuse me, can be put in. Give me 1 second.
Okay, sorry for that.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah.
But all of those things can be put in, and you can find out if those people are qualified and what also, you know, if they have pro bono. And I got a text last night from somebody at 10 o'clock at night. Kim texted me to ask me if I could do something for someone who had to go to court, but their resources were tied up because of the situation. But she also said, you know, they can afford to pay this. You know, is this something that you can help them with, or how you can guide them? You know, that we all have networks. There's some people that, you know, we call in favors, like, hey, I really need you to see this family. They can only pay $50 an hour. You know, some people will do it. That is why Emmanuel George, GK George, reach out and see if those people can connect you with those other individuals. There's also a lot of free groups that a lot of therapy practices are running right now since the pandemic. A lot of groups are also offering free support groups.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being a part of this show this afternoon, evening, wherever you find yourself. It has been a great discussion, and I think you have more that we have not been able to get out of you in one hour, and I look forward to the opportunity of us having this discussion again, because there are a lot of challenges, not only in our in a greater community, and the show is being shared in Liberia. So next time we bring you, we'll see how we can discuss the issue on a level of Liberia.
Yes.
Mr. Sabolosi, do you want to wrap up as we bring the show to an end?
Yes, again, I want to tell everyone thank you for your time, and to tell our audience thank you for tuning in to hear the 1 hour, 10 minutes to spend with us. So you'll be spending that time with your family members. We want to say thank you so much for that time. And Ms. Washington, as Mr. Sherry comes back, we want to say thank you again for answering our call in a timely manner. We appreciate it. And we'll turn back to the host to close us up.
You know, I was backstage and just enjoying the show, guys. I was working on technical issues in the back. But Ms. Washington, thank you so much. It has been a blessing to have you on the show. Like I said earlier, before we started the show, you definitely will be coming back here because there's so much you left on the table that we believe you still want to give us those information. So thank you again for everything. And to our viewers, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. Continue to share the show because you just got free counseling session. You just got free session. You didn't even have to pay. You know, that's what we do on Liberation Rise. We try to sneak it in. So,
and could I chime in? You can find me on Facebook. I'm trying to get better with social media. Those who know me, Emmanuel probably know I'm horrible with social media. But I am on Instagram. My practice is called Brave Bird Recovery and Wellness.
Brave Bird.
Yeah, I can share my social media handles, and if you guys want to follow, I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to use more so Instagram, but I am on Facebook as well. Instagram, I post. That's where I put a lot of the updates. Even when I do free things, I do a lot of free sessions, and I'm going to start doing some free workshops and some sessions. And also I have paid sessions and things like that, but I am going to offer some free nuggets that individuals can benefit from with some partners. I'm going to partner with people.
Nice.
You can hire me for free. I could do your Facebook and then you pay me at the end of the month.
You and 10 other people keep getting on me, and I'll probably forget to even go look at what you post on there. I don't even get Facebook alerts on my phone.
Yeah, but on a serious note, we just want to say thank you so much for accepting our invitation to come on the show. We want to thank all of our viewers today. Thank you for staying with us. And next week, we are going to have a special guest. Next, we're going to have our segment, This Could Be You. And we're going to have a special guest, Mr. Wesley Cooper. He's going to be joining us. I believe he's in Washington, if I'm not mistaken. But he's going to be joining us on the segment, This Could Be You. So join us next week. And let's look forward to a great week. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we will see you all next week. Ms. Washington, if you don't mind staying backstage while we end the show, please, we'd like to talk to you after the music ends.
Yeah. Mr. Cooper is an awesome Liberian. He runs two companies, JNet Logistic and Think Tank Chong. So you want to hear from him next week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. Stay tuned, and we will be with you next week.
Mama,